Hello, everyone. Time for another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D. I am your host, Matt DiNardo. And if you join me for my little tease on Good Morning Richmond, I talked about the fact that if you are a hunter or an angler or both, this is the show for you because my guest does something very special in the fall called Cast and Blast. So you're saying, well, who is my guest? And my guest is Captain Keegan Lemke from Virginia Fish and Fowl. Good morning, Captain Lemke. How are you?
Good morning, Matt. How you doing today?
I'm doing really, really well. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. So this is a kind of a program that you do in the fall because it's a great combination of hunting and fishing. How did you come up with this idea?
So when I was in college out on the New River, we used to do this at the first day of September goose. We would do it first day of the October or early wood duck season. And then we would do it the opener of the November duck season, where we go out and we would float the river fishing. And then we would harvest some, depending on the season, some wood ducks, some mallards, some geese. As we come across them on the river, sometimes we would set up on points mid-float and put out decoys. It's just a great way to enjoy both aspects of the fall time.
And there's some great weather in the fall, which makes it so enjoyable to be outside and to, we'll start with the hunting portion, to go after some fowl. So you mentioned you have geese, you have wood ducks. What are the fowl? Again, I missed that last one. I'm sorry.
Mallards.
Mallards.
The typical greenhead that everybody sees on the ponds around Virginia.
Right. And how plentiful are they in Virginia?
So right now, up until end of November, beginning of December, we're really hunting resident ducks, right? Those are the birds that are either have mated and have offspring in the marsh or the ponds or the lakes. They can be a little tough to hunt. There's not a ton of them, right? The best hunts really do start once the birds from Canada and New York start making their way down the East Coast.
So once they come on down, so they migrate down, and we're kind of the winter haven for those birds that come out of Canada and New York, or they continue to fly south, and is it a stopover year?
So it all depends, right? If we have an extremely cold winter where we freeze here in Virginia, right, where any of our still water and the backs of our creeks all freeze, those birds will come down and then they will pick up and continue down south, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, in the Gulf of Mexico eventually. But normally with the Virginia weather that we all know, they'll show up here and they'll tend to just loaf around. Some of them will pick up and continue down the East Coast, but if we don't have that freezing year, we are right in the perfect spot for them to just stop midway and they just hang out.
And so what are you doing now to prepare for the hunting part of this program?
So the beginning of September is, call it tagging season, right? That's when all new blinds that I have, got to put tags on them, make sure they're legal, got to go out, get them brushed in. So that's a great example of one of the ways we hunt, right? That's a boat blind. You can't always build blinds, right? It's what we call stationary blind, where you get in and sit. Next picture. Yeah, one of those. We can't always build those in all the places where we hunt. So the boat blind's a great option. It can hunt 4 people. You can tuck it up in nice places, add some more brush to it. It's a great way to conceal yourself.
And so obviously these are put in water or on marshy areas. Where are you hunting? I'm not asking you to give your specific spots away, but are we fishing, east of 95, west of 95, or are you all over based on where the activity is?
So I'm generally running on the York River system and other areas right at the mouth of the York River at the Chesapeake Bay. So that includes Pamunkey River, Mattaponi River, the York River below West Point, all the way down through Gloucester, Yorktown, and eventually, Guinea Marsh, Goodwin's Island areas down at the bay.
Gotcha. And you're starting at what time? I'm assuming this is an dark 30. We're out, and we're in the blind, and we're waiting.
Absolutely. So the way I do it is depending on the sunrise time. We tend to get out there about an hour and a half before. Usually I'm out there about 2.5 hours early, putting out decoys, getting everything set up, making sure we're comfortable. If we're going to cook breakfast that day, I get everything ready for breakfast, all that good stuff, and pick up clients from the dock and bring them out to the blinds.
Gotcha. And what does a a client need to bring with them? How do they prepare for this part of the hunt? Or are you supplying everything?
So there are a couple things that are required. This isn't quite like fishing where I can license my boat to cover licenses for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So for the waterfowl hunting, every client is required to get a Virginia hunting license,
Mm-hmm.
a state and federal duck stamp, and then a HIP registration, which just helps track, you answer questions for a survey and it tracks what you harvested that year.
Okay. And as far as the guns or rifles that you use, I should say, or shotguns, right? Are you using shotguns?
Shotguns. Yes, sir. Yep.
Are you supplying them, or do clients bring their own? Is it a mixture of both? What's kind of the normal, if there is a normal?
So normally clients will bring their own guns. We'd offer gun rentals for anybody who needs it. Waders, if we are going to hunt outside of a stationary blind or a floating blind, that is something that we always recommend, get your own so you have them in the future. I don't have all the boot sizes out there, so you'll be much more comfortable doing it that way. I believe if you look at go back one picture.
Oh, go back one picture. Yep.
Yeah. So that is a really awesome way of hunting that came out a few years ago. They're called these Invisiman. It's kind of a hybrid layout blind, right? So those are sitting right now in about 3 feet of water. Now, when you sit back in it, you are out of the water. You're driving. You still have to have waders. And that's I could go very far into that style of hunting to explain it, but that's a way of hunting where you don't have to necessarily have a tag on a blind. Mm-hmm. It's called, body booting, where if you are in public water and you're standing in the water and you are outside of the legal distance from a tagged blind,
okay,
you can hunt without having a tag.
So the type of blind you use then is dictated by really where you are or where you're planning to hunt, I'm assuming.
Correct. So that specific picture is outside of a creek that I have a stationary blind in. Okay, so that was last year, beginning of January. If you recall, we had about a week and a half, 2 weeks of very cold weather, mm-hmm. and all of our creeks were freezing.
Yep.
So we could not get into the creek that day. It was all froze up. So we brought those blinds out to put them at the mouth of the creek, just outside the ice line, which was perfect. We had a great day.
Gotcha. All right. So this is interesting because I think you said that wood duck begins in October and mallards begins in November, or do I have that flipped?
Correct. So you can harvest both.
Okay.
Wood ducks and mallards in the October season. The only duck we legally cannot harvest in October is the American black duck.
Gotcha. But then you just said you're hunting in January. So how long does the season go if it's opening in October or November?
So bear with me.
Yep.
Okay. This is the really wild stuff about our Virginia waterfowl season. So we have our September teal season. Okay. We have our September goose season. Then we have in October, 11, 12, 13, and 14 is our early wood duck season.
Okay.
Where you just can't harvest black ducks. October 26th is the Youth and Veterans Day. Okay, so if you are a child under the age of 15 or you are a current or former military, you are allowed to go out and hunt those days. You're the only people allowed to hunt.
Okay.
Now, black duck does open up for that. Right? The only days are those 4 days at the beginning of October that you cannot hunt black ducks.
All right.
And then we have November 20th through December 1st is duck season, right? Everything but scaup has a little bit, it's called bluebills. They have a 1 duck limit instead of 2. And then the season opens back up December 19th through January 31st. And that is, goose is pretty much in everywhere in the state, right? Goose comes in and goes out just like duck does.
Right.
And then there's also, I believe February 11th is a second youth and veterans hunting day right after the season concludes for everybody else.
God, so you really have to, obviously, the calendar, but somebody who's booking has to work with you about what they want to go after. If they're going after a specific species of fowl, and you're going to gear them to those days.
Yep.
Yeah. And are there limits in terms of numbers that you can, effectively kill, I guess, right? Because I always think of keep, right? So, yeah.
Correct. So you're basically on for what we call big ducks or puddle ducks. We have a limit of 6 ducks per person, right? And that's any combination. If you go on to DWR website, you'll see a whole list of how many of each duck you can target, right? So your combination can't be more than 6. And then we have another kind of duck called sea ducks that we hunt out in the bay, which are, scoters, old squaw, eiders when they make it down. And that's a little different. We can only harvest 4 sea ducks.
Okay.
And only 3 of them can be scoters, right? So you got to either throw in an eider if they come down, which it has to be extremely cold up north for us to get eiders down here, or you have to get a long tail. So we can keep skipping.
Skip again?
Yeah, one more time.
Yeah.
They're all going to be black with a white head on.
Oh, yeah, they're deep. I think I know what you're talking about here. Hold on. Those are wood.
There we go. There we go.
Yep.
So those are scoters.
Okay.
The black ones are the males or the drakes, and the brown ones are the hens.
Gotcha. So we passed through a couple of pictures there. As far as the ages, so you mentioned in certain times of the year there are children and or veterans. What are the age limits? Do you have any that you will bring hunting if somebody's booking a trip, or as long as they're with a responsible adult, is any age per se kind of in the range that you'll take?
So I leave that up to the parent or the guardian,
mm-hmm.
right, of the child. If you are comfortable with your child going out and shooting a single shot 408 or a 410 or a 20 gauge or a 28 gauge, you as a parent are cool with that, then I have no limit. They can swing the gun, right? They're good to go.
Gotcha. And as far as dress, obviously, I mean, it's going to be weather dependent. I mean, if it's raining, we're dressing, we're staying warm because we're talking November, December, January. You mentioned ice on the rivers, so we're bringing layers, and if we can peel off, we can peel off. But if not, we're staying dressed.
Oh yeah, layering is extremely important, right? You can always take clothes off. You can't make clothes appear out of thin air.
Exactly right. As we've all been out there, we know when it gets pretty cold for sure.
Oh yeah.
To go through a couple of these other pictures, I'm gonna step back here for just a bit. I want to go to some of the pictures. This looks like you had a kind of a family out with you, or what's the maximum?
That was actually 3 students from the St. Gertrude's Benedictine Schools of Richmond.
Okay.
They are some great kids. They had an awesome day. That was the first freeze actually that we had that year. So I believe that was a couple days before the picture of those Visiman blinds that we were looking at before.
Gotcha.
Same spot. Those kids shot very well. They had about 3 groups come in. They each were able to get their Drake Mallard. It's a good time.
So do you have a relationship that you work with St. Gertrude's, or would they just booked and that's how it went?
So I'm actually an alumni of Benedictine.
Benedictine, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So through the school and through some relationships with Current Culture Fly Shop, we were able to put it on. And so we get them out for fishing. We get them out for hunting every year. It's a great time with those kids.
And I see 3 hunters here, which I guess became anglers as well. Do they do both the cast and blast?
So this was beginning of January.
Okay. So
specifically for the cast and blast, I'm going to do those. I'll do it in the October, that Veteran Youth Day.
Right.
And then we'll do it for the entirety of that first split. So November 20th through December 1st.
Gotcha. And we'll talk about the casting in just a bit. How many clients will you take on a hunt? We see 3 here. Is that max, or is that usually one more than normal?
Usually it's booked as 2 hunters. We can accommodate up to 4. Depending. We do some private events at private properties around the state where, they're bringing out a large number of people and we're doing multiple guides for those hunts. But generally, if I'm booking it, 2 and 3, very comfortable. 4, we're going to specifically pick certain spots to go hunt, make it worth it for 4 people.
Gotcha. Going through some of the other pictures we have here, this gentleman has, so are these both mallards? Again, my knowledge of hunting, we talked about this off the air, is minimal. So I'm learning as we're doing this, right?
Oh yeah. So that can be tough. So that is our good friend, Dr. Dan. That was a day we went out last year in December, and that is his limit of American black ducks. We're allowed to shoot 2 of them per person.
Gotcha. So one is a male, one is a female based on the colors. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a way to tell based on the bill color.
Okay.
One is a little more green, one's a little more yellow between the hen and the drake.
Gotcha.
But sometimes it can be really hard to tell. The black duck is a species that can hybridize with the mallards.
Okay.
So there's been, since I've lived in Virginia, much talk about what is a hybrid black duck, what is not. Actually, if you go, I have a picture of a hybrid. If you go one more, right there. So go back one.
Go back one? This one?
Yeah. So that is very hard to tell. But that had like an oil slit green on the back of its head.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually a Drake hybrid mallard black duck. And that was the only hybrid that we harvested last year.
Interesting. The only, okay. So this is more of a rare then to find these hybrids, or are they becoming more normal now?
Since I've been hunting, we get a couple a year. It really all depends on where you're hunting, if you just happen to fall into them that year.
Gotcha.
But we normally will get 1 to 2 hybrids a season, and I always recommend to hunters, if you get one of those hybrids, take it somewhere and get it mounted, right? You may never shoot another one of those ducks again in your life.
Gotcha. And do a lot of your clients get that mount and take your advice on that? I guess it's kind of it's cool thing. Depends on the hunter, I guess, right? The client.
Yeah, if for some people, just being out there and getting that bird is the trophy. For some other people, they want that bird up on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new hunters, I always saved, when I was a kid, my first species of bird that I'd killed. So I always recommend, if I get people out for their first hunt, right, and they kill a great duck, I say, now's a decision-making point in your life, right? Do you want to keep that first duck every time and, have an awesome trophy wall at your house, right, your first ducks of each species? You may kill one down the road that's prettier, but, is it going to be more special than that first one?
I'm assuming you must have a pretty awesome trophy wall in your home or in your office, so to speak.
Oh yeah, we got quite a few. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of my friends who hunt, they love to have that room where they can walk in and they can remember every story about this one happened and, I had to track it here and all that kind of stuff. So speaking of tracking, so are you using dogs in retrieving, or is it sometimes too difficult to use dogs?
So for open water situations, heavy current, depending on the wind and the tide, we have big waves. We tend to not use dogs out in those sorts of situations. Mm-hmm. For me, a dog is best used in a swamp or in a marsh where the mud's too thick, right? We can't go walking through all that stuff, or we'll sink up to our waist in it, and the dog can kind of just hop through it and be good. It all depends on really what the client wants to do at that point. I can't control entirely what a dog does when we're out there.
Right.
So if the client doesn't want to hunt with a dog, then, that's one less thing that I have to worry about when we're out on the water.
For sure. Previous to this picture, there was a Canadian goose or just a standard goose? Yep. Okay.
That's a Canada goose. Yep.
And you said that this opens beginning of September. Is that correct?
Correct. There's a September goose season, and then that is where that, east and west of 95 starts to really be important, November. So November 20th through, I believe, the end of that first split, and then it opens right back up with the second split through the end of the season. Mm-hmm. West of 95, goose is open. Okay. East of 95, where I am, where most of my hunts take place, we cannot start hunting geese again until December season.
Gotcha. And the limit on geese in Virginia?
So that's another thing that changes.
Right.
Early season, we can shoot 10 per person.
Okay.
Right. And what's called the resident season, because we're trying to keep them from getting in people's fields and tearing up crops and all that stuff.
Right.
Once the regular season starts, east of 95, we can only harvest. They may have changed it to 2 this year.
Okay.
Last year it was 1.
Gotcha. So the regs change all the time, and you got to stay on top of them.
Every year, I tell people at the end of summer, just keep a lookout for when everything comes out, because that's going to dictate, what days you want to book, when you want to book them. Is it even worth it for you personally to come out to shoot one goose? If that's really what you want to do, we might send you to somebody who hunts west of 95, where I believe the limit is 3 per person.
And I know you work, Keegan, with Current Culture. You have your own Virginia Fish and Fowl. You just mentioned you might send somebody west of 95. Do you have other relationships in other parts of the state, or will you go west of 95 and hunt on other land, other property?
I would usually go west of 95, make some calls to farmers that I know out there, hunt clubs that I have some access on, where they got some swamps with some geese in it.
So really, you're a one-stop shop when it comes to fowl hunting, because you have the York River system, as you said. You have access west of 95. Really, you can do just about anything that a client is looking for at that point.
Correct. As long as there's enough time to get out and scout and really find the birds, right, then we can pretty much accommodate anything. But that is, even for people who are hunting themselves, right, new hunters getting out there, I always say, for every one day that you're hunting, you should probably be out scouting 5 days, right, to find those birds.
And that is to understand the habitat, to find the birds. I was just going to say that. That makes some sense there. The pictures that we're showing here, these are wood ducks. Is that correct?
So what we have here are, those burnt Sierra color. Those are Drake canvasbacks.
Okay.
And then I believe to the right of that, you have a hen canvasback with the tan brown head.
Okay.
And then you have a bluebill, right, the Scott that I mentioned earlier. I believe you have a Drake first, and then a hen bluebill. So those are diver ducks. So when I say we're hunting big water, right, so that's the mid to lower York. We're in blinds that are 600 yards off the bank and in 9-10 feet of water. And those are, they're called divers because they will sit on the surface and then you will just watch them disappear.
Gotcha.
They'll be down for 10 seconds and then they'll pop up somewhere else. So they go down, they're eating mussels. They don't really eat a ton of fish. I assume they eat some.
Right.
But when it comes to what ducks eat, we tend to avoid eating the ducks that eat fish. Right. So the diver duck, specifically a canvasback, is a very delicious bird. Okay, a lot of people frown at diver ducks, saying they don't taste good. A canvasback, one of the best table fares that you can have, and that's because they avoid fish. Right, they mainly are eating mussels down at the bottom.
Gotcha. Next picture here, the ducks we're looking at here. Are these wood ducks then?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's
it's the fuzzy head that gives it away, right?
Exactly. A little bit of that mohawk, and then the clown face a bit, right?
Yeah.
So that's we call that the working man's duck, right? In Virginia, if you have a hunt club that you're a part of, if you have a family that your house backs up to a swamp, somewhere like that, you can get out in October, early November, and you can harvest. We can harvest 3 wood ducks, two drakes, and that's we call that a wood duck shoot, right? They don't tend to decoy into a spread like a mallard or a puddle duck would. They tend to just buzz over your decoys real quick, so you got to be ready for it. But they're also the first duck to move out of the area when it gets cold.
Gotcha. And then they fly further south, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And we talked about these before, just kind of going through a couple more pictures here. This is very interesting to me because, again, I'm learning as I'm going through this. So what time of day? We start off super early when we're going hunting. You said, you start about 2 hours before. You pick up the clients about an hour and a half before because you're setting up and decoys and all. What time does the hunt finish? Is it done by noon? Is it 2 o'clock? What's an average day, if there is such a thing as an average day?
So everything is always weather dependent, right? So a bluebird day, right, our most comfortable day to be out, is not the best day to harvest ducks, right? So on one of those days, we're gonna, we may hunt 2.5, 3 hours in the morning, but once that sun gets up and the sun is shining down on the water, most ducks tend to find a nice spot where they can sit in the sun, and they do what we just call loafing, right?
Gotcha.
They just hang out and soak up that sun and raise their body temperature as much as possible.
So then, do you then work with the client and go back in the afternoon? Do you do an evening hunt, or is the evening hunt not really a good time because it gets too dark too quick?
Sometimes the evening hunts can be great. What we really look for, though, is a nice overcast day.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Our most miserable day to be out on the water, to be honest, is the best day to go duck hunting.
Gotcha.
Right? If it is sleet and rain and snow, we're out there. If I don't have a hunt booked that day, I'm out there hunting.
You're loving life, and your clients are all in, and we're good. I got you.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do a cast and blast, is that done on the same day, or do you do them as two separate days?
So we do that on the same day.
Okay.
So the reason we like to do that in November is because we can get out and duck hunt in the morning. Right? If sunrise is 6 o'clock, you can start shooting 30 minutes before sunrise.
Right.
You just have enough light to see, and we'll hunt 3-4 hours, and then we will pick up. If we have a bunch of gear, we don't normally hunt terribly far from the boat ramp. Run the gear back, grab the rods, come back out, and this time of year is awesome because the shrimp have started moving into the rivers from the bay, and that is, everything wants to eat shrimp.
Right.
Every single fish out there. So we can get out. We'll catch striped bass or rockfish, depending on what you want to call them. But we also have puppy drum in the marshes. We have perch in the marshes. We have speckled trout in the marshes, and that's a typical, right, November fish right there. It's heavy, big gut full of shrimp. Those guys were bundled up because that was a cold morning. They got it done.
And so when you do the angling portion, is it fly rod, spin, whatever the client is asking for? Is there a choice in your mind, or there's no choice?
Come November, we can catch them either way. So whatever the client wants to do, we'll put those rods in the boat. You know me, I love fly fishing.
Yep.
So I'm almost always out there with the fly in November, but you can catch them either way.
Right, for sure. So it looks like this is kind of a dark picture. So you must have been thick into them. You were going late, I'm assuming, in this picture here.
So that was early.
Oh, okay.
So what we did that day was we met up at about 3:30 in the morning, and we went to where, right now I'm running striper trips, but we're only running them at night because the water temperature is still during the day hovering just above 70.
Right.
Once we get down to the low 60s, those fish are comfortable. They're going to move up into the flats during the daytime. They're going to get on structure. They're going to get on the marsh line. And I mean, they're just gorging on shrimp. Right. That's it. So any pattern or lure that you can throw, whether it's an actual shrimp fly, curly tail, grub, or a paddle tail, white paddle tail, it just looks like a shrimp, and they tear them up.
And it's game on, which is really kind of fun there. So another early morning fish here. I gotcha. Very interesting.
Correct.
And are you fishing? What's the depth of the water you're fishing when you go striper, or does it vary just based on what your knowledge is? Because you said, like, once the water drops, we're looking at structure, we're looking at, marshland, low level, or sometimes are you going a little bit deeper with heavy sinking line like we do in the James?
So, great question. Right now, when we're hunting or when we're fishing at night, we're fishing primarily dock lights.
Okay.
And those can be from anywhere from 30 feet to 19 feet to 15 feet of water. Okay. All depends on which dock we're on. Now, once that water temperature moves up, now the structure that those fish are going to move onto, the people's docks, right? Anything like that. Yeah, we're looking at 10 feet, max, 9-10 feet, maybe 12 feet at some spots, but not normally. All the way to, we're catching striper right on the marsh line in 2 feet of water.
Wow. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a little top-water striper on the marsh line. That would be fun. I mean, look, I love fishing no matter what. You know that, right? So we've talked about that for sure. It just kind of paging through a couple more pictures here. Oh, that was a speckled trout too, by the way, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
So that's a puppy drum.
Oh, puppy drum. Okay, yeah, I missed the spot.
That's typical typical of the puppy drum that we catch on the Upper York. I call it more of a nursery up there. Our trout and our puppy drum are under slot normally, so that's under 18 inches. And then our striper, they can be anywhere from 15 to 33 inches was the biggest that we've caught out there in the fall.
And in the fall, is if you get in the slot range that you can keep, no problem with the client keeping fish at that point, right?
Absolutely not, right? Everybody can get that one fish.
Yep.
And, we're more than happy to accommodate.
Which is really good. I'm just, look at this, the stomachs on these stripers. I mean, it's just, like you said, they're out there and they're eating away for sure. One last look at, I mean, just, oh man. Now I want to do this. I mean, I probably am not a good shot, so probably I should just stick with this striper fishing. All right, so let's go through the whole thing again here. So depending on the type of bird that we want to go for, the type of fowl will guide me to the days that we're going to fish, and then whether we can or cannot do cast or blast. Are you doing those now, actually?
So no cast and blast right now.
Yeah.
I am hunting the 11th through the 14th for wood ducks for that early duck season. And those we're way back in swamps, right? All that. There's not much as far as fishing goes in some of those places. But there's a great, game farm marsh, right, on the Chickahominy Lake. You can go there and, hunt wood ducks in the morning. It can be pretty pressured, but they're there.
Right.
And then that's a great spot. You can go catch chain pickerel. You can go catch bass this time of year after. Everything we love to catch up in freshwater.
So when do you officially begin your true cast and blast program? Is it November then? Yeah,
November 20th is when for everybody, no matter the age, right, we start doing the cast and blast. There is that Veteran Youth Day, October 29th or 26th. That still have open, right? Haven't booked that yet.
Okay.
But that's a great one. I don't know what it is, right? But ducks somehow know. They know when the regular season is in. The first day of February, they're everywhere, right? And the day before the September or November season opens, they're everywhere. You could be sitting in your boat with a fishing rod, and they're landing next to you. So those tend to be great days.
Good deal. And you said you haven't booked that yet, so we need to tell people, how can we book Keegan? That's the most important thing. Whether you want to go for fowl or stripers early on or do the cast and blast, it's very easy. Give Captain Keegan Lemke a call, 804-687-5512, or you can look it up, Virginia Fish Fowl on the web. His contact information is there, and you can see what he's doing, and he'll reach back out to you if you fill out the form there. Just easy stuff for sure, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we try and make it as easy as possible, right?
It's fantastic. And again, for hunters, they need the hunting license. They need the appropriate gear, including waders, because of where you may be hunting in terms of the different blinds. And you mentioned something else. They need the duck stamps, correct?
Yeah, you need your state and your federal duck stamp. Very important.
But for fishing, your boat covers the license, so they're good there.
Correct. You don't need nothing for fishing besides your body and a decent cast, right?
Apparently, according to Simone, my cast was not decent this past weekend. That's all I'm saying. It was a little rough, but that's okay. We're going to fix that anyway.
That's right.
Captain Keegan Lemke, thank you so much for coming on this morning and talking about your fowl hunting and your fall fishing and the cast and blast. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you very much. And once again, if you want to hook up with Captain Keegan Lemke, give him a call, 804-687-5512. This has been, of course, Off the Hook with Matty D. My guest, Captain Keegan Lemke. Book him today. Sounds like a great time, and his knowledge is going to get you, for sure, into different ducks, the geese, and, of course, the stripers. You all have a fantastic day. We'll see you again for another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D.